Hey guys, good news. I have been on Whistler's or Theory of a Blind Man's show, Steal the Show, and I will link that episode in the description. And I want to show you guys my awesome, sabers that I have. I showed this in the show, but for some reason my webcam did not show on his show. But the good news, everybody was able to hear me. And basically, I have like two sabers. As you can see. And I got the blind padawan, and to the left of that is the blind flex, and I have my 26-inch NeoPixel blade and 32-inch tri-clue blade, and I'll show my sabers in a later part of the video when it gets like lower light, igniting them and stuff like that. Okay guys, now that my battery is fully charged, and as promised, I'm going to teach about how to be a legally blind nerd when you have sabers. The acuity won't matter, however, if you're totally blind, some of this might be hard, and stuff like that. But anyway, let's get into sabers. These are my main sabers. Under my left hand, to the left is my blind padawan, and to the right of the blind padawan is the blind flex, and they're both gray in color, although the blind padawan is a few inches longer than the blind flex, so I don't know the measurements of the blind flex, so I can't give a description of the blind flex in length, but it's significantly about like the size of Luke Skywalker's A New Hope graphics. If you ever found a graphics in your hands, you'll know by the tactile feel of it, and that's what you want to do. This works for the totally blind too. What you do is you have, your hilt in mind, but you want to alert your sabersmith, somebody that's making your saber, that you can't see very well or you can't see at all. And, that's what I did. I personally told my sabersmiths, that my acuity is this and it's hard to see. How am I gonna tell the buttons, apart, if there's more than one. And I also want to give, even though I gave shoutouts to this awesome dude a bazillion of times, but Wild Space deserves it for the remarkable accessibility, protocol he added to my saber. It's not really a font, but it's like tactile features as an accessory, so I can tell where I am on my hilt, like where the emitter is, where the control box is, and where's the pommel. Now there was a video about saber hilts by Swirl, but that was for the sighted. It's a great video for if you're sighted, so check out Swirl's video, Star Wars in Real Life, if you're sighted. But if you're legally blind or totally blind, watch mine, because I'm targeting the visually impaired, and me included. You can have my acuity, you can have Whistler's acuity, where you're Zippo, or you have my acuity, where you're like 2200, or 21 zillion or whatever, just to be able to use your lightsaber. But be very careful with how you design your saber. You want to make your hilt as blind accessible as possible in your design. And this one, the blind Padawan that I'm holding in my left hand right now, I designed, to be blind accessible, regarding the hilt. And the armory basically did the rest. Whereas the blind flex, is a second hand giveaway with some accessibility modifications so I can feel, where the control box is and which buttons are auxiliary, which buttons ignition, etc. As well as figuring out the emitter is much more tricky here, but I know it by, the buttons the further I go up, and yeah, you basically want to feel your hilt once you get it built and everything. You also want to decide with your sabersmith what soundboard you want. Like, what soundboard will be friendly to your vision impairment? Would it be Golden Harvest or would it be CFX? I don't recommend Profi unless you're sighted, because Profi is kind of more complicated, in navigation, and stuff like that. Whereas CFX and Golden Harvest, they're miles easier. Although Golden Harvest is the more easier of the bunch. CFX takes a little bit of teaching and training and learning, but unlike Profi, you'll get the hang of it, pretty fast. I'm not sure how complex Profi is, but I heard from the saber community it can be made to be blind accessible, so that's pretty neat. I don't recommend Profi unless you know how or are sighted. And when you get your hilt and, and everything, you want to, explore your hilt, have a feel for it, and all that kind of stuff, and, navigate, the control box or whatever you have on your hilt, and make sure you learn what the ignition button is. For me, it's under the control box of my blind Padawan, and for my blind flex, it's the first button on the control box. And the buttons I had, to make it more like Braille kind of deal, to give that Braille feeling, like it's Braille, but it doesn't mean anything other than aux is here, aux ignition is here, that kind of thing. And I also want to, discuss blades. Here's my 32-inch 8/16 tri-cleat blade, which goes with the blind flex. Yeah, it's meant to be slightly sparred with a little bit, but not big competitions. I think you would need something, stronger for competition sparring, like TSL or something like that. And if you're, legally blind or totally blind, and you get a NeoPixel, here's what to do. You would tell your NeoPixel PCB from the flat end Your sabersmith will warn you that you have a PCB. And then you can tell where the round part is, and you can tell where the PCB is by the flat, flatter feeling, part. And if you want to put in your blade and you're low vision like me, legally blind, you can still do this. The totally blind can still kind of do this, because the tactile switch, or not switch, but there is a, if you guys can see it, there's a tactile retention screw, and you just unscrew that, similar to a screwdriver, and you take your NeoPixel blade, PCB facing downward, and the flat PCB facing downward, and you just go until you feel a connection, and you can and you can test like that if you're legally blind. So that contrast of your blade will tell you if you're fully connected or not. And I'm connected, and I'm 2200, so I can see the contrast. And when you're ready, just ignite. On Golden Harvest, it's a single tap, and unigniting is a tap and hold. Tap once and hold, and the way you would go through fonts is you would hit the ignition if you have one single button like I do. If you have two, it'll be the auxiliary, and stuff like that. And you just hold till you hear the sound font. Now on Golden Harvest, unfortunately, it's not going to tell you sound font selection and tell you where you are. I recommend CFX for the totally blind. I recommend CFX for the totally blind because CFX, I feel, is more descriptive with the menu. But if you want a description of your power cell life on the Golden Harvest, you have to be strong in your muscles to do this. And you just, get your saber aimed right. Saber pommel towards your chest, emitter away from you. Like you're about to stab somebody. And you hold and stab till you hear it tell you the power level. As you know, it's not gonna be exact on the first try, like for me.
Checking power level. 100% left.
You'll get that. So Golden Harvest excels in power cell description. So that will help, you there. But they both have their strengths and weaknesses. And of course, you have the basic saber features of any lightsaber. If you want blaster block, you tap once while ignited. If you want to hear a Jedi talk, like in this case Kanan, you double tap on the ignition.
sense your presence.
And Kanan speaks. And then you have the smooth swing. And you can put your hands anywhere. For me, I like under the guard, because, you know, I feel safe under the guard, you know. And then you have what's called localized lockup for NeoPixel, because it's like in one section. Like when I did that, the flashing was close towards my emitter. Now it got a little bit closer towards the tip of the blade, and if I aim the saber down,
The Force will be with you. Always.
and that's pretty awesome. Now I'm gonna show you how to do that same thing on CFX. Now CFX is gonna be a little harder for those of you who can't really, you know, see too well like I can. Sorry if I'm moving the camera around, it's hard for me to even see the tiny screen. But just like with the Golden Harvest, it'll be semi-similar. Although differences, you're not gonna get, you know, a description of how much power cell life you have, other than a warning of cell energy critical. And you basically undo the bottom half of the hilt, and you have internal hilt or chassis, which this one is gold, and I'm gonna pull out a white kill key, and you'll hear Kanan saying that you have to do better.
You'll have to do better.
And there you go. And you just go tight until you feel you can't tight anymore. Like it stops there. And you can even do this without the blade, because this one's tri-qui.
Cell energy critical.
I'm about to let everyone in on the secret.
See that there?
The Force will be with you. Always.
See that there? That's an example of a low power cell. This is what Crystal Focus 10 does. It warns you cell energy critical. I'm gonna do this fast because of that warning. And what you basically do there is you do the same as the other Golden Harvest saber, and you twist just like on the other one, and you're gonna have a blade plug, be it NeoPixel or tri-qui, and you just feel for a tactile bump, and you grab and you pull it out. And don't know if you can see, and you take your 7/8 36-inch tri-qui blade, the open side down, because there's nothing to need to worry about connecting to, and you're gonna ignite. Now, when you hear cell energy critical, that obviously means, okay, it's time to charge now.
You'll have to do better. I'm about to let everyone in on the secret.
And this is Tricree. And the top auxiliary button is going to be doing all the same blaster block. And blade lock up as if a blade is linked with another saber's blade. And you can have force navigation with Kanan. If I can do it here. It's basically a gesture where you like use the force in a similar way that Kanan does, and he comes back with, "I can sense your presence." Don't think I can do that too much yet.
The Force will be with you. Always.
And that's how to use Crystal Focus 10. And the way you go through sound fonts is you hit the auxiliary, and the totally blind can do this too. You hit where your auxiliary button is, and you just hold the auxiliary until you hear from the soundboard sound font selection. You'll hear a beep and sound font selection, and you tap and hold to hear a tone and sound font selection.
Sound bank selection.
I am Kanan Jarrus, Jedi Knight.
The way you go through fonts is ignition takes you backward one,
Vengeance.
just like how finger swiping takes you back and forth on an item with a screen reader. But this is pressing buttons, and the auxiliary takes you forward.
I am Kanan Jarrus, Jedi Knight.
Forward one font. And then you hold the auxiliary until you hear the font select.
You'll have to do better.
And now we're on Kanan Jarrus.
Cell. Energy critical.
I'm about to let everyone in on the secret.
Just like that.
The Force will be with you. Always.
And of course, when you're putting the blade plug back in, just copy what you did with taking the blade plug out. Only difference is turning the retention screw right to tighten the blade plug in when you placed it back in. And to take out your blade, you basically turn the retention screw left, take out the blade, put in your blade plug, tighten right, twist right, and you're ready to go. And for navigating your kill key, you just feel for where it is, as well as feeling for where the opening is to put the kill key back in. And there you go, guys. That's how to use your sabers as a legally blind nerd. Hope you guys like this little video of saber navigation, and may the Force be with you.